as for Breach, to answer that question, I know people like his stun a lot, and his ult does look very beefy, but to be frank, I think he's probably the most overrated agent from what I'm seeing. Yeah, they took the Counter-Strike guy, and then they gave him a knife that silences people for 8 seconds and tells you where they are.
It makes them into Counter-Strike
You made a
guys.
Counter-Strike guy that drags everybody kicking and screaming into a game of Counter-Strike.
Yeah.
For 8 seconds. I was a player on that team and IGL, now the head coach of Ghost Gaming. So I want to take this chance to welcome the man himself to the show. Kaplan, thanks so much for joining us, mate. How you doing?
Good. How about yourselves?
Not too shabby, mate. Not too shabby at all. There's a lot of stuff to wade through right now, right? We're just on the cusp of, jumping into VCT. We had some big changes sort of last week. And listen, I know you yourself have been busy. We've just seen, Koala Noob joining this Ghost Gaming roster. Obviously, ambitious project for all of you guys. How are things going in the Ghost camp at the moment?
Pretty good. I think we've got a nice little honeymoon phase, that often happens with new rosters, and it's perfect timing to have that going straight into the third stage of VCT here.
No doubt about it. I mean, let's talk a little bit about Koala Noob, because I think he's definitely known to fans that go a little bit sort of deeper and sort of know some of the teams with real rising star players. For fans of Ghost Gaming, who definitely probably are familiar with a lot of the roster right now, should we be excited about this pickup?
100%. Gianni he's just such a hungry player. It's a lot of fun to have such a young player on the team. He's 18. It comes with, he just learns the game so quick. Like he's always grinding. He's super quick to pick up new agents. He's really coachable. He's got a lot of room to grow, really high ceiling. Fun pickup for me because he has this insane jet op that we can just plug and play wherever we want, but we're also kind of pushing him into roles that are very different, things like Viper, Killjoy, Cypher, and he's really testing his comfort and proving he's comfortable on a lot of different things.
Yeah, actually, speaking about Koala Noob, I think he got his moment when he finally started trialing out for Dignitas, and you mentioned like the jet op, he was starting to shine out there, but unfortunately Dignitas kind of folded a couple of weeks after that. And you mentioned here, and especially from the point of view of a lot of the coaches right now here, Kaplan. Hi, by the way, we still need to own you in chess. But
of course,
a lot of coaches right now in Valorant are saying, look, if you're a free agent and you want to join a team, you definitely have to expand your agent pool to be able to get picked up or to have a chance to get into one of the top teams in Tier 2 and Tier 1. That said, Koala Noob, always known to be a jet operator, jet fan knives, now going into these different roles. What else now, as we're touching into the rest of the roster, how is that evolving for the rest of the team here? Because for a lot of the viewers right now, yes, we hear about Koala Noob, but Ghost Gaming, maybe overall with these slight changes that happen in the roster, not many people know who's in the team right now and what we're currently doing in terms of roles.
Yeah, so we're trying a lot of different things out. I don't want to say so much that I give away what comps we'll be bringing into some of these big games we hopefully get into in VCT, but let's see. We have kind of a 3-way role swap going on right now. It's a lot, but something I really feel strongly about in Valorant is that a lot of the time, one agent's strengths aren't the same strengths as another agent in the same role. For example, I often use the example that an Omen player, a lot of strengths that reward Omen are often very different than the strengths that reward an Astra player. So I actually am very unafraid to have players moving around in role as long as I look at the agent they're moving into and it makes sense. And at least for Ghost Gaming, I hope spectators and fans kind of see it that way. It's not this player is now our Sentinel and this is now our controller. It's this player fits Cypher and this player fits Omen with the way we're using these agents in these comps. So I think look for a lot of different changes, but kind of know that it really depends on the comp and the agent specifically. It's not always a long-term decision.
And I kind of want to pull back a little bit just to VCT more generally and ask kind of how does a team like Ghost prepare for this this kind of event? Because you guys have been kind of playing it out in some of these Nerd Street events, some of these smaller events, but it's been a while since we've actually seen you in a bigger one. And comparing a team like yours that I think most people would probably put more in the Tier 2 category versus like a big guy like 100 Thieves or Sen or something like that? Like how does the preparation go into an event like this and kind of being realistic, but also kind of going in to win?
Yeah, I think a lot of it is building up the fundamentals. For me, building up team chemistry and confidence is huge. I think Valorant is a game that's so much about having confidence in your creativity and ideas, especially depending on the meta. I think this game's a lot more about counterplay than something like Counter Strike. You end up having to adapt
Mm.
and do counterplay, and really sometimes just throw your setups into the air halfway into a map. So I'm really emphasizing the fundamentals with the guys, trying to kind of build a system for getting our IGL comfortable with the structure of how to call, figuring out what kind of calling the players like, pushing players to make certain decisions for themselves, really playing lots of scrims and focusing on the big picture more so than like, okay, we have a week, let's try to make 7 setups for every map and just I mean, we still have a lot of server time, like that still ends up you need some structure, but I
Sure.
think most of our focus is like the big picture stuff, even just cleaning up comms, making sure they're not too hectic, just hitting the
Adam,
basics.
we just had a chance to look at the roster, I guess, that's confirmed on Battlefy to go into the VCTs that are starting in 2 days. And I noticed looking at this roster that we don't have Dazzle in here. Right. So we had like a rumor mill going on from, I think it was George Gades that was saying that there's potential that Dazzle may be trying out or replacing somebody to play in Luminosity Gaming. Can you shine some light on that if you can? And what happened there going into Dazzle with you guys in Ghost Gaming?
I can't say too much about this one. I think what you do see is that we're not playing with him on the
Mhm.
Battlefire roster. So obviously that informs some of the rumors. Um, but yeah, no, I mean everything's super amicable with Dazzle, and right now we're
Yep,
gonna go and play in VCT with this 5 that you see on Battle.
respectable.
Well, I kind of want to pull back a little bit to you personally, because obviously, kind of in Uber's interview, he's talking about how you were IGL for Space Station Gaming. What's that transition been like for you from kind of calling for a team and being a player in there to now coming over to Ghost and being the head coach?
It hasn't been too bad to be honest. Going from I think it depends what kind of player you are on a team. For me, IGLing on Space Station, I put together the roster and I had a really big kind of macro oriented approach to IGLing, and I did a lot of I think I tried to leverage my strengths that I knew would play into coaching as an IGL in the team. I tried to really do a lot to structure our server time, encourage us to approach practice a certain way, like build the team culture up. So for me, in some ways, Space Station Gaming was a testing ground for a lot of what I use as a coach. I knew I wanted to coach before Valorant even came out.
Mm.
Eventually, so for me, it was a pretty smooth transition. Um, it's obviously tough being going from a player to coach. I knew I wanted to coach for a while, so it didn't really like hurt the ego or anything too much. I was ready to start coaching, but uh, you have to learn some of when you're an IGL and you're microing a team. You have a lot of control during a game and a lot of say. As a coach, I've had to humble myself and learn that a lot of it's about facilitating the players I have on this team and what they like to do. What does my IGL like to call? I still try to play a big role in strategy, give us some structure to understanding a meta and giving a lot of suggestions. But moving from IGL to coach, you're definitely giving up.
Mm.
Yeah, I mean, you're getting a lot more control over some things, but you're giving up control when you're watching the game play out.
I'm starting to get a sense of your philosophy as a coach here, Kaplan, because you kind of mentioned that on Space Station Gaming you almost were like a player coach, that your focus was quite a bit more macro oriented. I want to know if your philosophy. I'd love to know about some of these lessons, right? Like these things that have sort of changed your philosophy, because as a coach, there's only a certain degree that you can imprint yourself on this team, right? And you maybe talk about the culture and sort of facilitating or giving your roster the ability to actually adapt in the game. You can't be there micromanaging. So I'd love to know like what the shift has been like, and maybe if your idea of what it means to be a coach has changed a bunch since your time on SSG.
Yeah, I think I didn't know what coaching in esports would be like, and I think some esports coaches promote and reference a lot of lessons learned from traditional sports. And while I
Mhm.
do the same, there's a lot to learn. It's been interesting to realize, okay, you really are one of 6 or one of 7 people on a team if you're including a manager or maybe you have an assistant coach or something. It's very intimate, and you don't need to exert the same level of kind of control and dictatorship, and I actually don't think it's as effective. It becomes a lot more of being a mediator than I first anticipated. I try to make things really democratic. Sometimes I mean I have an agenda, I have my opinions, and I push hard for them.
Sure.
But I try to like I'm not making a decision by myself ever. I mean I never
Mhm.
have on this team, and I try to just kind of maybe my opinion takes a little more weight in certain things, but even then it's for the team to decide that. I think a lot of it is encouraging people to play the game they want to play it and sometimes even approach practice the way they want to approach it. I think I probably put more of a hand in how I expect us to practice and treat each other. I really try to exert control over team culture and what I believe is right. I feel that that's my job on the team. But in terms of in-game, I think this game is really about being very adaptive, very creative. I don't think you can have a micro IGL or one IGL and one secondary caller and three quiet players. There's just it's so fast, it's so fluid. You need a lot of back and forth between everybody. And I have a firm belief that you need to play the game in a way and play comps and agents that fit players enough that they have the comfort and confidence to be able to be really creative with each other. And so a lot of it is as a coach in terms of strategy, this is what I think is good on paper, but I really have to look at my team and my players and be like, okay, what I think is the best comp on paper with 5 robots is not the best comp for my team. And
Yeah.
that's been something really fun to learn. I think it's something really fun for people to think about when they watch all these teams play and try different things. It's
Mhm.
not always what is best, it's what is best for that team and the players they have.
Yeah, I actually want to give you props too about the philosophy and how you want to promote like camaraderie, friendliness between players because that's something that you were very fond of even in your days with Code 7 with Rob Wiz and TLO and all them. And going from there and then going to SSG was always about being like super positive in a team. So I like that you bring that into Ghost Gaming as well, and hopefully that works out. But you just talked about different composition and stuff like that too, evolving with the meta. And we just talked about some changes from last week, us three on the host desk, and then I want to know your thoughts basically right now and what are the biggest changes you think is currently happening in the current meta? Do you think that Astra actually did get that much of a nerf? And I want to know how you think Breach is because I know you and I are pretty fond of Breach, and do you think you'll see him in the meta now?
Yeah, I think the Astra nerf was pretty hard. I think the fact that you can't use the suck ability off rip, but you gotta wait is probably the
Mhm.
largest impact on
Yeah.
her. I think that the nerf to there's a longer cooldown before her suck can be used again.
Yep.
Affects the pace of the game. It's easier to break through defenses a lot. I don't think that nerf would be so heavy if the recall time hadn't got nerfed. But when you nerf the two
Mm.
at the same time, it's much easier for a team on attack to bait out a suck and find an opening somewhere else on the map in that window of time.
Mhm.
I think it's a heavy nerf. I'm seeing a lot less Astra get played. Um, I
Return of
think,
Omen.
yeah, is my opinion. I mean, obviously, some people are going to suggest Brim, but
Mhm.
I'm not quite a Brim believer as much as most. I
So,
think
yeah.
I think to be honest, we'll be seeing a lot of Omen, and I think we'll see the game play a lot like it did right before Astra got added. Um,
Mhm.
and yeah, I think that's most of where I see things going. I think as for Breach, to answer that question, I know people like his stun a lot, and his ult does look very beefy. But to be frank, I think he's probably the most overrated agent from what I'm seeing
Mm.
of public opinion on the current patch. The flash nerfs are pretty heavy in the sense that you can't turn from them as easily, and I actually think his flashes are the easiest to react to and turn from in the game. So to me, that ability is too useless for the rest of his kit to outweigh it. But that's
Mm.
my own speculations.
Then
Interesting.
kind of outweighing that. So if it's not Breach, how do you think once KO's coming into comp, like how do you think he's going to slot into the meta? Do you think he's going to be a mainstay or he's going to be another agent that's just added and well maybe some teams run him but he's not like huge for the game?
I think he will be a mainstay. When
Mhm.
you take out Astra and look at the meta before Astra, it was very much a meta that favored being the aggressor and using your utility onto a piece of map. And a lot of the game was a dance of backing up and giving up that space and kind of maintaining that you were always the aggressor, whether you were on attack or defense, right? Lots of retake setups and so on. The ability to throw something that gives you information, and if anyone is within the vicinity, they can't use abilities back. It just pushes that concept to an extreme, right? The first person to use the ability makes the other team incapable of using an ability for 8 seconds. I definitely think he will be a mainstay. I'm not sure where he'll slot in. People will probably, my guess is run one duelist plus KO and maybe Sova or Sky, or maybe they'll just run
Yeah.
two duelists and KO and no other initiator. It's my speculations. I think he looks really strong. I think he's, my guess is certainly going to be a core pick on most maps. Maybe not Breeze or Icebox because they're a little bigger, harder to get value, but we'll see.
I definitely see a double initiator, double controller, one duelist, maybe less sentinels as well. If KO
Yeah.
is going to be like as suppressing, be able to know which
mean-
agent's hiding in a fucking map as well. So
Am I crazy to feel like KO feels like a duelist in many ways?
Yeah, I think so too. I think he's gonna take the slot of a duelist. If for people who are running double duelist comps, I think it might be Jet KO instead.
Yeah, I definitely think that's going to have good synergy. I mean, especially when you compare him to Phoenix, right? He does the same thing. He can
Yeah.
flash for himself. His ult accomplishes the
a
same
better
thing and
flash
lot
from
more.
himself too.
Yeah, that's true.
Mhm,
It's a lot
much
more
better. Yeah.
flexible. I think he is one of the best flashes in the game. Yeah, I mean, I think he is pretty much a must pick. And my guess is, if that is true, it will become much more clear much more quickly than Astra, right? Astra was a difficult agent to find value out of, to implement into
Yeah.
your team. It was extremely hard. I was really stubborn with my team that I thought she was going to be great, but we actually backed off on her when she first came out because it was just way too hard to kind of get a player comfortable, get the team to work with it. KO is not difficult, right? I think teams aren't
He's out of
swimming
the
with him
box.
yet because, qualifier 1, he's not in it, but I think it would take, a couple scrim days for a team to just figure out, okay, this agent's good or not. It's not like he's too complicated.
KO just feels like they just like took the Counter-Strike guy and plopped him in. Like he feels like such an intuitive character for people
Love
to
it.
pick up, which I think is gonna make him like even better for people to learn quick.
Yep.
We already saw the clip with nothing. It's fucking nice though what he was doing. So
Yeah, they took the Counter-Strike guy and then they gave him a knife that silences people
Yeah.
for 8 seconds and tells you where they are. and
It makes
it's
them
kind of
into
a side
Counter-Strike
You made a
guys.
Counter-Strike guy that drags everybody kicking and screaming into a game of Counter-Strike.
Yeah.
For 8 seconds, essentially. All right, so Kaplan, your team, if I look here at the bracket, obviously in the round of 32, there's a potential matchup against this sort of newly formed T1. I want to talk about the goals for all of you sort of here in VCT Stage 3. Like, what are you sort of high level hoping to achieve? And what are your thoughts on that particular matchup? Because I'm sure you sort of scout ahead of the bracket and see who your potential opponents are.
Yeah, I think we feel good. I think T1 is a very, very good team, but a lot of that, they're a great team, but I definitely feel like I think we could hold our own against T1 in the past. I think we can definitely do it now that it's a rebuild. We have confidence. Okay, we're a rebuild, they're a rebuild. Like, it's pretty even footing, fresh meta too. Like, this is anybody's game. I definitely expect us to hopefully win it. I'd like us to be playing for a qualifying spot in closed qualifier against MV, and I think we have a shot at winning that too. But I really hope and expect us to be able to be in that top 8 game.
I love that. A nice little short-term goal that seems to be very attainable for you guys too, with Koala just joining the roster. So good luck with that as well. And final question for me going in here, Adam, is basically, I had a chance to hop on to your podcast as well, being the No Cap podcast, and I know you bring in a lot of like prominent players, coaches, Dream. I think Psycho wants to go in there at some point. If not, he's going to ask you to go in a boxing match, but. Tell us a little bit about your podcast here, and because it's lengthy, but it's very good questions that you bring here with your guests.
Thanks. Yeah, I really enjoy the one-on-one dynamic. I love podcasts like that. I love doing it. I just love having really lengthy conversations about Valorant. Having a podcast that appeals to a very wide audience wasn't quite the goal, as much as me realizing, well, I might as well record these. And in fact, turns out having a podcast gives you an excuse to say to someone, hey, come talk to me about Valorant for an hour. It's a little easier when you have the podcast. But yeah, I try to focus. It depends. Kind of sometimes I hit topics that are very out of game focused, like career and dealing with kind of growing a career in Valorant. A lot of the time we talk about out of game concepts in a team environment, some of the psychology to that. And then sometimes we get really heavy on the detailed meta and strategy. I wanted to offer something that was pretty high level and for a little bit more of a niche audience. And yeah, it's been off and on, but trying to do it at least bi-weekly.
And
Awesome.
I can't believe you've talked about it, but you've not told us where to find it. Where can we
That's
where can we
right.
go to watch No Cap, dude?
You can find it at my YouTube, which is youtube.com/itskaplan. I think it's also under my camera here. youtube.com/itskaplan, or it's also on Spotify. You just type in no cap. That's cap with a K, KAP.
Nice.
Adam, look, great to have you on the show, man. Really excited for what's to come here for this Ghost roster. Obviously, the retooling is an exciting prospect. You've got some great names, and obviously you're at the helm. I just wanted to thank you for taking the time to join us today, man, and good luck
Thank
in
you.
VCT Stage 3.
Yeah, thank you to all three of you for having me on. I love this podcast. I was pumped to get invited on. It's been a pleasure. And yeah, we'll need the good luck, and good luck to you guys.
Cheers
as well.
tomorrow when you qualify, Adam. Cheers tomorrow.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
All right,
Pressure's
buddy,
on.
have a good one. Thanks for joining us, man.
Thanks, man.
Peace, bud.
Great chance to chat with Kaplan, obviously one of the more erudite members of the Valorant community. And yeah, I do recommend the No Cap podcast if you want to check out some of the underpinning dynamics, I think, of sort of, the way that Valorant in a more academic sense is perceived. I love the episode with Dream. It is in the weeds, but those two are both very big brains. So it's a great opportunity to understand a little bit how things go inside the head of a coach.